Far beyond Earth, in a quiet star system that belonged to no one, a massive space station floated in the darkness. It was called the Council Station, the place where the most powerful alien civilizations in the galaxy met to make important decisions. The station looked like a shining metal city. Thousands of lights glowed across its surface. Large ships from many alien empires floated around it like silent guards. Inside the station was the Grand Council Chamber, a giant circular room where leaders from dozens of species sat together. Some were tall and thin with glowing skin. Some were small with hard shells like insects. Others looked almost like moving shadows. They had gathered today for one important reason. Humanity. The newest species to enter the galaxy. Humans had only been traveling between stars for a short time compared to the ancient alien civilizations. Many species in the galaxy had existed for thousands, even millions of years. Because of this, many alien leaders believed humans were still weak and inexperienced. Today's meeting was supposed to be simple. It was meant to welcome humanity into the galactic community and explain the rules they must follow. At least, that was what most of the council believed. At the center of the chamber stood a tall platform. On it was the human ambassador, a man named Daniel Hayes. He wore a simple dark uniform with a small silver symbol of Earth on his chest. His face was calm, and his posture was relaxed. But many alien leaders were watching him carefully. Some were curious about humans. Others did not trust them. And a few believed humans might become a problem one day. The leader of the council was a tall alien known as High Speaker Valen. His species had ruled the galaxy's politics for centuries. Valen stood slowly and looked around the chamber. The council welcomes the representatives of humanity, he said in a deep, calm voice that echoed through the room. Large screens translated his words into every language. We gather today to discuss peace, cooperation, and the place of your species in our galaxy. Many alien leaders nodded. This was the normal way things worked. New species joined the council, accepted its authority, and followed its rules. But the human ambassador simply listened quietly. Valen continued speaking. The galaxy is old. Many civilizations exist. Stability must be protected. His glowing eyes turned toward the human. Humanity must agree to follow the laws of the council and respect the balance of power that has existed for many centuries. Some alien leaders watched the human carefully. They expected him to agree quickly. But Daniel Hayes did not answer right away. Instead, he looked around the room calmly, studying the many strange faces of the galaxy. Then he spoke. Humanity came here for peace, he said. His voice was calm and clear. We believe cooperation between species can create a better future. Several alien leaders nodded in approval. But not everyone looked pleased. One of the military commanders of the council leaned forward. His species was large and armored, with sharp teeth and dark red eyes. His name was Commander Croth. Croth studied the human with interest. Peace is good, the commander said slowly. But peace is easier when power is understood. The room became quiet. Crotha's heavy voice filled the chamber. We have studied your species, human ambassador. He tapped a control panel in front of him. A large screen lit up, showing images of Earth ships and human colonies. Your civilization is young, Croth continued. You have only a few star systems under your control. Many aliens nodded again. The numbers were small compared to the ancient empires. Croth leaned closer. So I ask a simple question. His red eyes locked on the human ambassador. Where is your fleet? The chamber became completely silent. Some alien leaders looked curious. Others smiled slightly. They expected the human to show a small group of ships waiting outside the station. Maybe 10. Maybe 20. Nothing impressive. The human ambassador did something unexpected. He smiled. Not a proud smile. Not an angry one. Just a calm, quiet smile. We did not bring a fleet, Daniel Hayes said. Murmurs spread across the chamber. Some aliens looked confused. Others looked amused. Krotha's voice became sharp. You came to the most powerful meeting in the galaxy, without protection. The human ambassador folded his hands behind his back. No, he said calmly. We brought protection. Kroth frowned. Then where is it? For a moment, the human ambassador did not answer. Instead, he slowly turned his head and looked toward the massive window behind the council chamber. The stars outside the station were peaceful and quiet. Then alarms suddenly began to sound across the station. Lights flashed red. Alien officers rushed to their control panels. Sensor operators shouted in surprise. Massive object detected. Unknown vessel approaching. Energy readings rising. The giant screens in the chamber suddenly changed. A dark shape appeared against the stars. At first, it looked like a moving shadow. But as the image became clearer, the alien leaders began to understand what they were seeing. The object was enormous. Far larger than any warship in the galaxy. Its metal hull stretched across space like a floating mountain. Rows of glowing lights ran along its armored surface. Powerful engines burned blue and violet at its rear. Thousands of hidden weapons were visible across its body. Silence filled the chamber. Commander Kroth slowly stood up. His eyes were wide with disbelief. What is that? He whispered. The human ambassador turned back toward the council. His calm smile returned. That, he said quietly, is our Titan-Class Warship. For several long seconds, no one in the council chamber spoke. Every alien leader stared at the massive image on the screen. The ship was so large that the station sensors first believed it was a small moon. But now the scanners showed the truth. It was a warship. And it was still moving closer. Slowly. Silently. Across its dark metallic surface, thousands of small lights glowed like distant cities. Large armored plates covered its body, layered like the scales of some giant creature. Antenna towers, weapon ports, and strange mechanical structures covered the top of the ship. The rear engines burned with a deep blue and purple glow that lit the empty space behind it. The Titan-Class Warship looked less like a ship. And more like a moving fortress. Inside the chamber, alien officers rushed to their consoles. Running full scan. Energy readings rising. Multiple weapon systems detected. Unknown shield technology. Every new report made the room more tense. Commander Kroth leaned forward, his claws gripping the metal desk in front of him. That ship is impossible, he said slowly. His voice no longer sounded confident. The alien commander had fought many wars in the galaxy. He had seen the largest warships ever built. But nothing came close to what the scanners were showing now. Another officer spoke quickly. Length estimated, 12 kilometers. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. 12 kilometers. Most alien battleships were only 1 or 2 kilometers long. Even the largest command carriers rarely passed 4 kilometers. But this human ship was 3 times larger than the biggest warship ever built. High Speaker Valen raised one hand, trying to bring calm to the room. Silence, he ordered. Slowly, the whispers stopped. Valen turned his glowing eyes toward the human ambassador. You said this is your protection, the council leader said carefully. Yes, Daniel Hayes answered calmly. Valen studied him. Are there more ships like this one? The chamber became very quiet again. Every alien wanted to know the answer. The human ambassador paused for a moment. Then he spoke. No. A few alien leaders relaxed slightly. But Hayes continued. This is the only one. Confused murmurs spread across the chamber again. Commander Kroth narrowed his red eyes. One ship. He gave a small laugh. You bring one ship to face the fleets of the entire council. Several alien commanders nodded in agreement. Outside the station, 3 powerful alien armadas waited in orbit. Hundreds of ships protected the council meeting. Even if the human warship was large, it was still only one vessel. Croth looked pleased again. Size does not win wars, human ambassador. Daniel Hayes did not look worried. Instead, he simply pointed toward the large screen. Then perhaps your sensors should look closer. The alien officers exchanged nervous glances and began scanning the ship again. Seconds passed. Then one officer suddenly froze. Commander. Croth turned. What is it? The officer swallowed. Weapon count increasing. Croth frowned. Explain. The officer quickly adjusted the scanner display. Dozens of red marks appeared across the image of the Titan-class ship. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Each mark represented a weapon system. Plasma cannons. Mass drivers. Missile launchers. Energy beams. Many of them were larger than entire alien warships. Another officer spoke quickly. Power readings from the main reactor are extreme. How extreme? Croth demanded. The officer hesitated. Equal to 3 starships fleets combined. The chamber filled with stunned silence again. High Speaker Valen stared at the screen. This is not possible, he whispered. Human technology was supposed to be young. Still growing. Still learning. But the Titan-class warship was something else entirely. It was not a simple battleship. It was a weapon designed to dominate an entire battlefield. Croth tried to hide his growing concern. Even powerful ships can be destroyed, he said. Your ship still faces hundreds of ours. The human ambassador nodded calmly. That is true. Then he added something that made several alien leaders feel suddenly uneasy. But we did not build the Titan-class ship to fight fleets. Croth frowned. Then why build it? The human ambassador looked at the massive ship on the screen. His voice became quiet. To make sure fleets never try. At that moment, a new alarm sounded. Alien technicians began shouting again. Energy spike detected. Large weapon system charging. Target lock detected. Commander Croth stood up instantly. What is happening? An officer pointed toward the screen. The human warship is activating a weapon. Panic spread through the chamber. Target? Croth demanded. The officer looked at the display. Then he blinked in confusion. It is not targeting the station. Everyone looked surprised. Then what is it targeting? Valen asked. The officer zoomed the image out. Far from the station, a large asteroid floated quietly through space. The scanner highlighted it. That asteroid, the officer said. Croth stared at the screen. Why would they target a rock? No one answered. Then the Titan-class warship fired. A single bright beam of white light crossed space faster than anyone could follow. It touched the asteroid. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the asteroid vanished. Not exploded. Not broken. Simply, gone. Only empty space remained. The entire chamber fell silent. Because every alien leader understood the message. If that weapon could erase an asteroid that easily, then a space station would not survive even one shot. Commander Croth slowly sat back down. His confidence was gone. Across the room, the human ambassador stood calmly. Watching. Waiting. And the Titan-class warship remained outside the station. Silent and unstoppable. The council chamber remained silent after the asteroid vanished. No explosion. No debris. No warning. Just empty space where a mountain of rock had existed seconds earlier. Many alien leaders stared at the screen, unable to speak. Even the ancient species who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years had never seen power like this. Commander Croth slowly leaned forward again, but this time his voice was different. It was no longer confident. "What weapon was that?" he asked quietly. The human ambassador looked at the screen for a moment before answering. "A small one." Several alien leaders shifted nervously in their seats. If that was a small weapon, no one wanted to imagine the larger ones. Inside the control rooms of the station, alien technicians worked quickly, trying to scan the Titan-Class Warship again. But every new report made the situation worse. Shield strength increasing. Energy reserves still rising. Multiple weapon systems still inactive. One officer turned pale. "Commander, the ship is not even using full power." Croft slowly looked back at the screen. The massive human warship floated peacefully near the station, its engines glowing softly in the dark. It had not moved. It had not fired again. It simply waited. High Speaker Valen finally spoke. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the concern behind it. "Human ambassador, why bring such a weapon to a peace meeting?" Daniel Hayes folded his hands behind his back. "Because humans understand something the galaxy seems to forget." Valen tilted his head slightly. "And what is that?" The human looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of many alien leaders. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Some looked thoughtful. "Peace is easy to talk about," Hayes said. "But peace only lasts when everyone respects the cost of breaking it." Several council members looked uncomfortable. For centuries, the stronger alien empires had controlled weaker species using fleets and threats. It was simply how the galaxy worked. But now something had changed. Humanity had not arrived with a fleet to compete with the great empires. They had brought something else. Something that made fleets feel small. Commander Croth finally asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "You said this is the only Titan-class warship humanity has." "Yes," Hayes replied. Croth narrowed his eyes. "And you believe one ship is enough to protect your entire species?" The human ambassador nodded. "Yes." Croth let out a slow breath. Then he looked back at the screen again. The Titan-class warship still floated beside the station like a silent guardian. It did not threaten the council. It did not move toward the fleets waiting nearby. But every alien commander in the system now understood something very clearly. If that ship ever decided to fight, the outcome would not be a battle. It would be a disaster. Croft looked back at the human ambassador. "Why show us this power?" he asked. Hayes answered without hesitation. "Because humanity did not come here to ask permission to exist." The chamber grew quiet again. "We came," Hayes continued, "to make sure the galaxy understands something before we become part of it." Valen leaned forward slightly. "And what is that message?" The human ambassador gave a small, calm smile. "Humans want peace." He paused. "But we are very good at war." The council chamber remained quiet after the human ambassador finished speaking. Many alien leaders looked at each other with uneasy expressions. For centuries, the great empires of the galaxy had controlled smaller civilizations with power and fleets. That system had always worked. Until today. Now a young species had arrived with a single warship that could challenge the balance of the entire galaxy. High Speaker Valen slowly stood again. His glowing eyes studied the human carefully. "Human ambassador," he said calmly, "your message is very clear." He paused before continuing. "But the council still wishes to understand something." Daniel Hayes nodded slightly. "What would you like to know?" Valen gestured toward the massive image of the Titan-class warship. "That ship represents incredible resources, technology, and time. Why would a young species build something so large instead of many smaller fleets? The chamber waited for the answer. Several alien commanders believed they already knew the reason. Humans were probably trying to impress the galaxy. Trying to look powerful. But the human ambassador shook his head slightly. Humans did not build the Titan-Class Warship to impress anyone. Valen's eyes narrowed with curiosity. Then why build it? For a moment, Hayes looked down at the floor of the chamber. When he spoke again, his voice was calm but serious. Because humans learned a difficult lesson from our own history. Many alien leaders leaned forward slightly. Human history was still mostly unknown to the galaxy. For thousands of years, Hayes continued, humans fought each other on our own planet. Some aliens seemed surprised by that. But over time, Hayes said, we learned something important. He looked up again. Peace does not survive when only one side has power. The chamber grew silent again. Many civilizations in this galaxy speak about peace, Hayes continued. But history shows something different. He slowly looked around the chamber. Stronger empires force weaker species to obey them. Smaller civilizations disappear when they cannot defend themselves. Several alien leaders shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Because everyone knew that statement was true. Hayes continued calmly. Humans decided long ago that we would never allow our species to become helpless. He turned slightly toward the large screen showing the Titan-Class Warship. So we asked ourselves a question. The chamber waited. What kind of ship would make even the strongest empire think twice before starting a war? The image of the giant warship filled the screen. And suddenly the answer was obvious. Commander Croth slowly crossed his arms. So instead of building many ships, he said slowly, you built one ship powerful enough to stop an entire fleet. Hayes nodded. Yes. Croft looked back at the screen. The Titan-Class Warship remained perfectly still outside the station, like a silent giant watching the galaxy. Valen spoke again. And you believe this weapon will bring peace? Hayes answered calmly. No. That answer surprised several council members. But it will make war very expensive, Hayes continued. And that gives peace a chance. For the first time since the meeting began, many alien leaders began to understand something. Humanity had not come to threaten the galaxy. But they had also not come to be controlled. They had come prepared. Very prepared. And the Titan-Class Warship floating outside the station was proof of that. For a long moment, no one in the council chamber spoke. The massive image of the Titan-Class Warship still filled the main screen. It floated beside the station like a silent giant, its engines glowing softly in the darkness of space. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded the system, but suddenly those fleets did not feel as powerful as they once had. High Speaker Valen slowly looked around the chamber. The other council leaders were quiet now. Some were thinking carefully. Others were still staring at the screen in disbelief. Commander Croth was one of them. The proud military commander who had questioned humanity earlier now sat silently, studying the massive warship outside the station. Finally, Valen turned back toward the human ambassador. Human Ambassador Hayes, he said calmly, your message has been understood. Hayes nodded politely but said nothing. Valen continued. The council invited humanity here to discuss peace and cooperation. However, today we have learned something unexpected. Several alien leaders nodded slowly. They had expected to meet a young civilization that needed guidance. Instead, they had discovered a species that had already prepared itself for the dangers of the galaxy. Valen folded his long hands together. Humanity clearly values its independence. That is correct, Hayes replied. And humanity also values peace. Yes, Hayes said calmly. Very much. Commander Croth finally spoke again. His voice was quieter than before. If humans value peace so much, he said, why build such a terrifying weapon? The human ambassador answered without hesitation. Because history shows that peace without strength rarely survives. Croth thought about that for a moment. He had spent most of his life fighting wars between rival empires. Deep down, he knew the human was not wrong. Hayes continued speaking. Humans do not wish to rule the galaxy. We do not wish to conquer other civilizations. He paused briefly. But we will never allow anyone to conquer us. The chamber remained silent. Then something unexpected happened. High Speaker Valen slowly raised his hand. This council recognizes the sovereignty of the human civilization. Several alien leaders looked surprised, but none disagreed. Valen continued. Humanity will join the galactic community as an equal power. No demands. No conditions. No threats. Just recognition. For the first time since the meeting began, a small smile appeared on the human ambassador's face. That is all humanity ever wanted, Hayes said. Outside the station, the Titan-Class Warship slowly began to turn. Its massive engines brightened as the giant vessel prepared to leave the system. Alien commanders watched carefully as the enormous ship moved away from the station. Even from a distance, it still looked impossibly large. Commander Croth crossed his arms as he watched it disappear into the stars. That ship could conquer half the galaxy, he muttered quietly. High Speaker Valen looked at the fading glow of the engines. Yes, he said thoughtfully. But they chose not to. Across the chamber, many alien leaders came to the same conclusion. Humanity was still a young civilization. But they had already learned something that many ancient empires had forgotten. Power could start wars. But sometimes, power could also prevent them. And on that day, as the Titan-Class Warship vanished into deep space, the galaxy realized something important. Humanity had not arrived as conquerors. They had arrived as equals. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy had chosen peace.